Hello there, pre-matriculants. Welcome to Educate. In this video, we'll be doing the animal phyla. So basically, remember that in our previous videos, we've already introduced the body symmetry, cephalization, the number of tissue layers, the number of gut openings, as well as the presence of a coelom. So all of those characteristics are very important for you to know before we proceed with this video. So basically, you need to know that we have got 6 animal phyla. So we say it is 6 animal phyla. When I'm talking about the animal phyla, it's more like the type of animals that you can have in this world. Basically, remember that we've got the 5 kingdom classification system, right? And one of those kingdoms, it is known as the kingdom Animalia. So the kingdom Animalia, remember that it consists of all animals. Even us as humans, we are also animals. So we also fall under the kingdom Animalia. So now when we're talking about the phyla, basically these are the types of animals. We call them animal phyla, basically. Okay, so if it is one, we use the term phylum. If it is just one type of animal, we use the term phylum. But if there are many, we use the term phyla. So basically, we have got these 6, which is phylum Porifera, phylum Cnidaria, phylum Platyhelminths. We have got phylum Annelida, we have got phylum Arthropoda, and we've got phylum Chordata. So these 6 are more like the type of animals that we can have under the kingdom Animalia. It's more like the divisions under the kingdom Animalia. For example, under the kingdom Plantae, we've got bryophytes, we've got pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Similarly here, under the kingdom Animalia, or under the kingdom of animals, we have got these 6 type of animals, which is Porifera, Cnidaria, Platyhelminths, Annelida, Arthropoda, as well as Chordata. So as for us humans, we fall under the phylum Chordata. So basically our phylum is actually Chordata, or we fall under the phylum Chordata. It's more like the type of animals that we are in the world. We are Chorda. We are chordates, basically. We fall under Chordata. So you need to also revise the body plans of different animals. Remember that I've already introduced this topic when I say that the body plans is just how the body of animals look like. So not all the animals are the same. I mean, if we take a human being and we take a fish, they do not look alike. It is because they've got different body plans. So we look at the following features. We are going to look at the body symmetry. Remember, the body symmetry tells you we have got bilateral symmetry, right? We've got radial symmetry. We also have got an asymmetrical one. We also have a cephalizations, which just means the presence of a head. So some animals, they do have heads. Some of them, they don't have a head. Okay. We also look at the tissue layers. Remember that we have got if an organism has got 2 tissue layers, when it is still developing, it is a diploblastic one. If there are 3, it is a triploblastic one. And then we also look at the number of gut openings. Remember that some of the animals, they only have got a mouth only, so they've got a blind gut. But some of the animals, like us humans, we have got a through gut because we've got the mouth as well as the anus. We've got 2 openings, okay? Then the last characteristic that we're going to look at is the presence of a coelom. And remember that we already discussed that the coelom, or the body cavity, it has got a certain function in animals. So basically, why am I reminding you these 4 things? Basically, these 4 things is more like is actually what we use to differentiate these different types of animals. To say which some of the animals, they've got a coelom, some of them they don't have a coelom. Okay, so basically when we're talking about the body plans, we're talking about how do their bodies look like, how do the bodies of the animals look like. So let's look at the different phyla and try to differentiate how does Porifera look like, what body symmetry does it have, cephalization, how many tissue layers does it have, how many gut openings does it have a coelom. So we're going to look at all of those characteristics for each and every phylum. So that is better explained using a table. So we're just going to use a table to study the characteristics of each phylum. Okay, so we're going to start here. You can see this is the phylum. We start with phylum Porifera. Please always name them in their order from phylum Porifera until phylum Chordata. Okay, so we've got phylum Porifera as the first one. Basically, the animals that fall under the phylum Porifera, they look like this. So these are the animals. Basically, you might say that this is not an animal because it doesn't look like an animal. It's more like a plant, but actually it is an animal. It is known as a sponge. It's known as a sponge animal. So a sponge animal belongs to the phylum Porifera. So when we're talking about the phylum Porifera, we need to know that their body symmetry is asymmetrical. Remember that the body symmetry, it tells you what will happen if you cut the animal in half. Okay, so if we say that it is asymmetrical, it means that if we divide the porifera in half, or if we cut it in half, we are not going to get two identical halves. For example, if I come to this animal and then I cut it right here, and then if I look at one half and the other half, they don't look the same. So we say that it is asymmetrical. But if we take a human, for example, if we cut a human in half from his head until downwards, we can obtain two identical halves. Okay, so here we say that the porifera, they are asymmetrical because they cannot be divided into two equal halves. You cannot cut them and get two equal halves. I repeat, please make sure that you watch my videos explaining all of these body symmetry, cephalization, and whatnot. And then now we can look further at their cephalizations in porifera. Basically, the phylum Porifera, they do not have any cephalization. It means that these animals do not have a head. Remember that the head, basically, it has got the ears, it has got the mouth and the eyes. That is the sense organs, the obvious ones, the one that you learned in grade R. So basically, when you're talking about the Porifera phylum, you can see that from this diagram, this animal does not have a head. So they don't have any cephalization. We say that the phylum Porifera does not have cephalization. Right. And then now we also look at the number of tissue layers. Remember that the tissue layers that we have, it can be diploblastic, meaning that you have got two tissue layers at birth. Okay, during the formation of that animal, if it has got two tissue layers, we say it's diploblastic. If it has got three, we say it is triploblastic. But as for phylum Porifera, they do not have any tissue layers. Okay, so they don't have any tissues during their formation. And then when we look at the number of gut openings for phylum Porifera, they don't have a gut as well. So they don't have any gut. So remember that the gut openings that we're talking about here, it is the mouth and the anus, right? So it's more like the openings into the body or into the digestive system. For example, us as humans, I repeat, we've got a mouth and an anus. So the mouth is used to consume food and the anus is used to excrete waste. So we've got two gut openings. But as for the phylum Porifera, they do not have a mouth, they do not have an anus, they don't have any gut. So basically you would wonder, how do they eat? Basically, how do these eat? So since the phylum Porifera animals, since they don't have a gut, basically they feed by filtering floating particles from water. So whenever they ask the nutrition of the animals that fall under phylum Porifera, how do they eat? Because they don't have a mouth. Okay, if I say they don't have a gut, it means they don't have a mouth or an anus. So they do not. How do they eat? Actually, they eat or they feed by filtering floating particles from the water. Okay, it is just one of the processes that is hard to illustrate, but basically if there is some food in the water, that food, it is just able to be absorbed into the animal itself. Yes, they actually filter the particles from the water and they feed from them. They don't really have a mouth because this doesn't even look like an animal. It looks like a doll or something like that. Or it looks like, I don't know what you can say this is, but it doesn't look like an animal at all. Okay, they don't have a mouth, so they can only feed by filtering floating particles from the water. So if you are a life science enthusiast, you can go ahead and search the whole process. How does the filtering part work? But basically, they kind of filter the food particles in the water and they feed from those, but they don't have a mouth. So you try to figure out how that works. And we also look at the coelom. So basically, they do not have a coelom. Remember, the coelom, it is the body cavity, right? The body cavity that is responsible for developing blood most of the times. Remember that the coelom, it develops the blood basically of an animal. So the phylum Porifera, they don't have blood, these animals. They don't even look like animals, I repeat for the 100th time. So they don't really have blood as well. So they don't have any coelom. Okay, and when we look at their mode of living, or when we look at where they are found, or where do you find them, they are found in aquatic regions. So it simply means that they are found in water, or in places that are that have got water. Basically, they're aquatic. They are found inside water, just like this porifera here that you can see, this sponge here. It is found underwater as well. And we say that these organisms, they are sessile basically. So the term sessile organisms, it simply means that they do not move. So when we say that organisms are sessile, it means that they are attached to a surface or a substrate, so they cannot move. So basically, as you can see, it's an animal, but it does not move. It just feeds by filtering floating particles from the water. They cannot feed, they cannot do anything that a regular animal that you are used to can do. Yeah, so in this case, this is known as the phylum Porifera. So this is the most poorly developed animal ever. It doesn't have a gut, it doesn't have a mouth or an anus, it doesn't even move. It cannot even move, okay? So one of the other things for phylum Porifera is that their body is made up of millions of spicules. So spicules, they are kind of something that is they kind of look like thorns, basically. They kind of look like thorns. So whenever you touch something that is surrounded by spicules, you are going to get hurt, in a sense. So those spicules actually protect the sponge from predators. Let's just say, for example, there are some sharks here which are trying to eat this animal, all right? Which are trying to eat this animal, which is the sponge or the porifera, okay? Because they've got some spicules, things that look like thorns, it means that they can be protected from any predator that would want to eat them away. So this is known as the phylum Porifera. It is the most poorly developed type of animal, or poorly developed animal phyla. So now we move from phylum Porifera, we go to phylum Cnidaria. So after phylum Porifera, a better developed animal that we found is phylum Cnidaria. So the Cnidarians, or the animal that fall under the phylum Cnidarians, they've got a radial symmetry. So their body symmetry is radial. Remember that when you say that the body symmetry is radial, it means that you can divide the animal into two identical halves, but you can do it in many different ways. Please make reference to my video explaining radial symmetry, bilateral symmetry, and asymmetry. Okay, but as for Cnidarians, they are the only animal phyla that have got radial symmetry that we'll study about here in grade 11. So whenever you hear of radial symmetry, you need to think of Cnidaria, nothing else. Okay, because the Porifera, they do not have a symmetry, they are asymmetrical. But as for the Cnidarians, they've got what? They've got a radial symmetry. So this is an example of a Cnidarian. So this is how they look like. For example, jellyfish. So jellyfish is an animal that belongs to the phylum Cnidaria. Okay, so this phylum Cnidaria, what else to know about it? When we look at the cephalization, they do not have a head. So basically, they don't have any cephalization. Cnidarians, they do not have a head. When we take a jellyfish, for example, the one that we can see here, this is a jellyfish. Do you see a head here? There is no head. They don't have a head. Akokhanda. I don't know how I can say this, but basically, there is no head. They don't have a head. They don't have sense organs such as the nose and the mouth and whatnot. No, they don't have a head. So these are what? These are jellyfish. These are jellyfish, and they belong to the phylum Cnidaria. All right, and we need to know that the tissue layers, when you look at the tissue layers, their tissue layers are diploblastic. Remember that when we say that the tissue layers are diploblastic, it simply means that they only consist of two tissue layers when they are still developing. So basically, when we take a Cnidarian that is still developing, a small Cnidarian, it has got the inner layer, which is known as the endo, and then the other one, the outside one, it is the ecto. Okay, so basically we have got two layers. We've got the endoderm, then the ectoderm. So the inner one is known as the endoderm, don't forget that, and then the outer layer is known as the ectoderm. It's known as the ectoderm. So those are diploblastic. So it means that when they are still developing embryos, the animals that belong to the phylum Cnidaria, they only have got two layers, the endoderm and the ectoderm. Alright, and then when you look at the number of gut openings in animals that fall under Cnidaria, basically they have one gut opening. Remember that when you're talking about gut openings, it can either be the mouth and the anus, okay? Yeah, the mouth or the anus. So when you say that they've got only one, it means they only have the mouth. So basically jellyfish have a mouth. I don't know if you can see it from this diagram, but somewhere along this jellyfish, there is a what? There is a mouth. So that mouth, it is used to do what? To consume the food. At the same time, it is used to excrete the waste. So the mouth is acting as a mouth and an anus. They only have got one gut. They don't have an anus. So jellyfish, they actually eat and they also excrete the waste. They also cack the waste using the same mouth that they eat with. So basically, we say that those have got a blind gut. So basically, the number of gut openings is 1. You are going to say that's a blind gut. If they say what is the type of gut that the Cnidarians have, they've got a blind gut. It simply means that they've got only a mouth. So they only eat food. And then after eating the food, it digests, and then the waste that needs to be excreted, it is also excreted using the same mouth again. Wow, so amazing and so disgusting. Look at the coelom now. When you look at the Cnidarians, they are acoelomate. When you say that the Cnidarians are acoelomate, it simply means that they do not have a coelom. Remember, the coelom's function is to develop a complex organs such as the blood. So jellyfish, they are not supposed to have blood and bones because they don't have a coelom to develop that. Okay, because remember that animals that have got a coelom, they've got blood and they've got bones. But as for Cnidarians, for example, Cnidarians, they do not have blood, they do not have bones. So we say that they are what? They are acoelomate. They lack a coelom, the one that develops into blood and the bones. So we say that they're acoelomate. And when you look at their mode of living, it's aquatic as well. When you say that it's aquatic, remember, it means that they are found in the water. Okay, they live in the water. So you can see, for example, this is jellyfish. Jellyfish, it is found in the water. Of course, you would not find jellyfish flying around in your house. Okay, you cannot even find jellyfish flying around and then you can just say, come, let me eat you. No, you can find them only in the water. So basically, between their tissue layer, they've got this fluid that is known as mesoclea. So they contain the fluid mesoclea between their tissue layers. And when we look at their movement, basically, the Cnidarians or the animals under Cnidaria, they can be sessile or they can also be free swimming. So some of the animals under the phylum Cnidaria cannot move. So those animals, they're actually known as the polyp, okay, or they can say it's a polyp phase of Cnidaria. But basically, you don't need to know that as a grade 11 learner. So for example, this first picture here, when you look at this first picture, you can see that this Cnidarian or this animal here, it is attached to the surface or it is attached to the water. Okay, it's attached to the surface here in the water. So it cannot move basically. All right, it is attached, it cannot move. So we say that it is a sessile Cnidarian. It is sessile. And sessile means it does not move or it cannot move or it is attached to a certain substrate. So in this case, this Cnidarian, it is attached. Then this one, if we look at this one, this is a normal jellyfish, the one that you're used to. So this is a jellyfish. It can move, right? A jellyfish can move. So basically, some of the Cnidarians, they are sessile, they are attached to a surface, but some of them are able to swim in the water. They're able to swim in the water. Okay, so these ones that are able to swim in the water, we usually use the word medusa to refer to them. But basically, for grade 11, you don't really need to know about that, but you just need to know that some of the animals that fall under the phylum Cnidaria are able to move, whereas some of them, they just are attached to a substrate. And some of the Cnidarians are sessile, others are free floating. Okay, we've mentioned that, of course. Just try to look at this box here. There's just some fun facts about Cnidarians if you're interested. But besides that, let's go to phylum Platyhelminths. So phylum Platyhelminths, it is more developed than phylum Cnidaria. It is the third type of animal phyla that we have. So looking at his body symmetry now, let's just do a walk over. It has got bilateral symmetry. bilateral symmetry, remember that it simply means that you can divide the animal into two identical halves. You can cut it into two identical halves, all right? Okay, you can obtain two identical halves when you cut it. So this is how the Platyhelminths phyla looks like. So basically, if I take my pen here, let's just say this is a knife, and I cut this in half. I cut it in half. When you compare these two halves, this half on this side and the other half, they are identical to one another. They look alike. They look the same. Look at this. There's one eye here. There's also one eye another side. So basically, the phylum Platyhelminths, they've got a bilateral symmetry, meaning that you can divide them into what? You can divide them into two identical halves. Okay. And then the other thing we need to know about them, the cephalization. Yes, they do have a cephalization. When you say that the Platyhelminths, they've got cephalization, simply means that they've got a head that has got senses. A head, literally a head that has got senses, such as the nose, such as the ears, such as the mouth. All of those sense organs are found at the head of a Platyhelminth. If you look at this image that I've used here of a free-living planaria, so this is known as a free-living planaria. So this free-living planaria, you can see that here it has got a head, and these are two eyes. It has got a head, so it has cephalization. We use the term cephalization to refer to that. And then when we look again at one more characteristic, the tissue layers in Platyhelminths, they are triploblastic. It simply means that it has got three tissue layers. When it has got three tissue layers, it simply means that when the Platyhelminths is still young or it is still developing, it has got three tissue layers. Remember, we know of the ectoderm and the endoderm, right? So it has got three of them. It means that there's another third one, which is known as the mesoderm. So remember that you have got the ectoderm and the endoderm, then you have got the mesoderm. So once a Platyhelminth organism is put here, it means that when it is still developing, it has got three layers: the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. Three of them. That's how we say it is triploblastic. Okay. And then the number of gut openings that it has got only one gut opening. It simply means that it has got a blind gut as well. The explanation is still similar to the one of a cnidarian, because simply means that there's only the mouth. They only have got a mouth, they don't have an anus. So basically they will feed using the mouth, and they will also excrete using the mouth, because they do not have any other opening for excretion. And when you look at the coelom, basically the Platyhelminths, although here it's written acoelomate, basically we say that they've got a pseudocoelom. So we use the term pseudocoelomate. So we say that the Platyhelminths, they are pseudocoelomate. The acoelomate is not really correct for Platyhelminths. We use pseudocoelomate. In our previous video, we did explain with him when you've got a coelom and a pseudocoelom, what is the difference between them? All right. There is a difference between them. So this one is more like a false coelom. A pseudocoelom is a false coelom. So the Platyhelminths, they have a pseudocoelom, they have got a false coelom. And then their means of living is aquatic. Simply means that they live in water as well. So most of our type of animals that we're having here, they are living in water. So one of the characteristics that we need to also consider of the Platyhelminths phylum is that they are said to be dorsoventrally flattened. So we use the term dorsoventrally flattened so that they imply that they appear squashed from a dorsal to a ventral perspective. So basically, if we look at this tapeworm, so the tapeworm is an example of a Platyhelminth animal. So basically, you can see that if we look at this tapeworm, it looks like it has been squashed, or it has been squished. Let's just say you take an orange and you put it in your hands, and then you squash it. You squash it, so it will appear squashed. Similarly here, we say that we use the term dorsoventrally flattened. So it means that it is flat. Okay, it is flat. Okay, so the phylum Platyhelminths, they are said to be dorsoventrally flattened because they appear squashed. So the examples of Platyhelminths that we have here, we have got this flatworm. We also have got tapeworms. So it's usually the worms. Okay, so this is just all about the Platyhelminths. Let's now move to the phylum Annelida. So So the fourth type of animal that we have, or that we study about, is the Annelida. So phylum Annelida, we're just going to look at the same characteristics one more time. We are going to look at the body symmetry. The body symmetry is bilateral. I've already explained, Wutsi. It can be divided into two equal halves. So this is an Annelida. This is an annelid. Okay, so these are the animals under phylum Annelida. So they've gotten a bilateral symmetry, meaning that you can cut them into two equal halves. For example, this is a leech. This is a leech. If I cut it into two equal halves here, you're going to see that these halves are going to be the same. They're going to be identical. Okay, if I take this worm here and then I cut it in half in this way, and then I compare the two halves, one side and the other side, they are identical to one another. If I take an earthworm, again, an earthworm is another example of the phylum, and I cut it in half, basically we're gonna obtain two identical halves. All right, so basically we say that they've got bilateral symmetry. And when we look at cephalization, of course they do have cephalization, simply meaning that they do have a head. So basically a phylum Annelida has got a head. You can just see from the diagrams that I've projected here that this is the head of a leech. This is known as a leech. Okay, you can see that this is an earthworm. An earthworm has got a head, so it has cephalization. Right, and then when you look at another characteristic is the number of tissue layers. The tissue layers are triploblastic. It means that we've got the ectoderm, the endoderm, and the mesoderm. Right, and then the number of gut openings will now change when it comes to Annelida. So for the previous phylum, all of them, some of them didn't have a gut, others had only one gut. But when it comes to Annelida, basically it has got two guts. Remember that when it's got two guts, it means that there's a mouth and there's also an anus. The mouth is used for consuming food, and then the anus is used for excreting food. So there are two gut openings. So we say that that gut system is known as a through gut. You still need to remember that is known as a through gut. So just like us as humans, we've got a mouth for consuming food, then we have got an anus for excreting waste. So we have got two guts. It's a through gut. We say it's known as a through gut. So when we look at the coelom, the annelids will now start to have a real coelom. So basically the Annelida is a coelomate animal. It's a coelomate animal. It means that they do have a coelom. They do have a body cavity. Remember that the coelom, it is found in the mesoderm tissue. So basically in the mesoderm of an Annelida animal, we find a coelom inside it. So that coelom, remember, it is responsible for developing complex organs such as the blood and the bones and whatnot. Not all of them, they do have the bones. Of course, they don't have bones. These are worms. But basically, most of the animals under the phylum Annelida, they have a coelom. That coelom is basically responsible for creating a hydroskeleton. So it acts as a hydroskeleton. What do I mean is a hydroskeleton? Because they don't have bones. Because you can see that these animals, these are just worms, guys. You can see it's obvious they don't have bones like you as a human being. So what is their skeleton? They've got a hydrostatic skeleton. So it's known as a hydroskeleton or a hydrostatic skeleton. So that hydroskeleton, it is developed by the coelom. So since we say that they're coelomate, it means that their coelom actually provides them with a hydrostatic skeleton. Simply means that their skeleton is made up of water. You have learned that in grade 10. We've got three types of skeletons: an exoskeleton, an endoskeleton, as well as an hydrostatic skeleton. In this way, a phylum Annelida, these animals under phylum Annelida, they've got a hydroskeleton, simply meaning that their body is filled with some water, with some fluid inside it. Okay, so that fluid acts as a skeleton. It actually provides them with force so that they can be able to move. Us as humans, we have got bones and muscles for movement, but phylum Annelida animals, they've got a hydroskeleton, and that hydroskeleton, it is developed by their coelom. Okay, one of the new characteristics that we need to look at when you come to a phylum Annelida is that they are segmented. So we say that the phylum Annelida, they've got animals that are segmented. So the term segmented simply means that their body it is divided into repeating sections, and these repeating sections are known as metameres. So we say that the annelids, or the animals under the phylum Annelida, they are divided into repeating sections. It's more like a train, guys. When you take an example of a train looks like this. It has got different wagons, and these wagons are connected to one another. These wagons are done what? They are connected to one another. Okay, so that's the segmentation that we are talking about here. So when you're looking at the annelids, they are divided into what? Into repeating sections. Okay, so when we look at those repeating sections in this diagram, we can look at this is a leech. This is a leech. It is very dangerous. If it bites you, you're gonna cry. So you can see here that it is having these lines here. So these lines are just small sections that are repeating. So we say that they are segmented. So the term segmented, it simply means that our annelid, or our animal, it is divided into smaller sections. These lines are those sections that are following each other, and those sections are known as metameres. So we use the term metameres. So just highlight it. We use the term metameres. So basically, when you are looking at any animal under the phylum Annelida, you can see that it has got these small lines here. These lines are the small sections because their body is cut or divided into small sections. We say that it is segmented. These small sections are known as what? As metameres. When we look at here, this is an earthworm. I don't know if you can see properly, but this earthworm, it is divided into smaller lines. So we say that it is segmented. And those small segments, they are known as metameres. So that's it for phylum Annelida. So after phylum Annelida, we go to phylum Arthropoda. So their mode of living still aquatic, of course. They are found in the water, nothing much about it. So when you look at them, Arthropoda. Arthropoda. So phylum Arthropoda, we look at their characteristic. These animals, they are bilateral. They've got a bilateral symmetry, simply meaning the same thing. You can divide them into two identical halves. They do have cephalization, of course, because they do have a head. Let's look at their picture. So these are arthropods. So these belong to the phylum Arthropoda. So if you look at this is an example. This is known as a shrimp. So shrimps are similar to prawns. For those people who eat in those fancy seafood restaurants, you must know what prawns are. So basically, shrimps are similar to prawns. Basically, they do have a head as well. You can see that this is a head, guys. It does have good sense organs such as the nose, the mouth, and whatnot. Look at this one as well. This is also an arthropod as well. So they do have a head. They do have a head. So they have cephalizations. We say that they do have cephalization. Their tissue layers are triploblastic as well. They also have got two gut openings. It is still the same explanation. So we say that they've got a what? They've got a through gut. Okay. They do have a coelom as well, and they are also found in aquatic regions. So that's phylum Arthropoda. So most of the phylum here, they've got similar characteristics, of course. Yeah. So when we just look at the other specific characteristics on Arthropoda, they've got an open circulatory system. So I'm still going to make a clear video on what an open circulatory system is, but basically they do have an open one. As humans, we've got a closed circulatory system, but these ones do have an open one. So I will definitely make a video explaining the difference between a closed and an open circulatory system. They are also segmented just like the annelids. You can look at them here. They are divided into smaller appendages. If we look at a shrimp here, this shrimp, it has got smaller sections. Look at this. This is a section. 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 This one is a section, and this one is a section. So their body is divided into sections. But when it comes to Arthropoda, we don't call them metameres anymore. We only call them metameres here on the phylum Annelida. But here on phylum Arthropodas, they are just sections, or they are just appendages that are following each other. Okay, so now their coelom, they do have a coelom, right? So their xylem is filled with fluid. So their xylem has got a lot of fluid inside it. It is filled with that fluid, and that fluid, it actually acts as blood. So we say that the phylum Arthropoda, they don't really have the real blood, the blood that we have as humans and other similar mammals, right? They don't have that type of blood, right? So the xylem of the arthropods actually has got a fluid inside it. That fluid is known as hymocele. So hymocele is a fluid that actually acts like blood. It's actually false blood. I usually call it false blood because it's a fluid and it acts like blood. Okay, they don't really have blood like us. If you take a shrimp, take a shrimp and then you kill it when you want to eat it, of course. You don't just kill animals, right? If you take a shrimp and then you try to kill it, you are not going to find any blood spilling from it, okay? But instead, you'll find a fluid that is known as hymocele. That hymocele, it is found inside the xylem of an arthropod. The examples of arthropods is spiders, it is crabs and millipedes. So whenever you see a spider next time, you will know that the spider does not have blood. I don't know if you ever thought about that. Okay? When you see a crab next time, you will know that a crab does not have blood. When you see a millipede, shongololo, you will know that a shongololo doesn't have blood in it. It has got hymocele. Hymocele is that fluid that acts as blood in arthropods. So we also have other characteristics. Arthropods, they've got a waterproof exoskeleton. So remember that for annelids, we say that they've got a hydroskeleton. It means that their body is filled with water inside it. That's a hydroskeleton. But when it comes to phylum Arthropoda animals, they've got a waterproof exoskeleton. It means that their skeleton, it is outside the body. It's an exoskeleton. Okay, and then this exoskeleton, it is made up of a chemical that is known as chitin. Okay, yeah, and then this exoskeleton has got this duty of protecting the arthropod from drying out. So basically, the phylum Arthropoda, they don't want to be dry outside. So that exoskeleton protects the main function of the exoskeleton in the phylum Arthropoda. It is to protect the arthropod from drying out, or you can say protect them from desiccation. Then the arthropods, they've got this special process that they do. This one is very important and they usually ask it in biological terms. The arthropods, they shed their skeleton. When you say that they shed their skeleton, for example, you know guys that there's this thing known as a snake, right? For people living in rural areas, they know that a snake sheds off its skin, simply meaning that a snake actually comes out of its skin and it leaves the old skin, it goes with a new one. Similarly, the phylum Arthropoda animals, they also shed their skeleton. They actually come out of their skeleton, and that process is known as ecdysis. So ecdysis is a process by which an arthropod sheds their skeleton, and they do this so that they can grow. So the main function for this ecdysis process, it is so that the arthropod can grow. So this is a good illustration of the ecdysis process. You can see that this is an arthropod. This was its old exoskeleton. Okay, it was its old exoskeleton. So it has come out of its old exoskeleton, and here it is now. It is now a new organism. So this allows the arthropods to grow because the skeleton cannot grow itself, right? So basically, by coming out of the skeleton, the arthropod is able to grow, right? That process is known as ecdysis, or you can use the term molting to represent that. So we use the term ecdysis, or you can say it is molting. So make sure that you understand that molting or ecdysis, it is the process in which arthropods shed their skeleton so that they can grow. So that's phylum Arthropoda for you, and we are done with it. Then the last phylum that we talk about, it is the phylum Chordata.
Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Educate is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes.
So phylum Chordata, remember we said that this is the type of animals where us as humans belong to. So basically, when you look at their symmetry, it's bilateral. They do have cephalization. They are triploblastic. They do have 2 gut openings, meaning that they've got a through gut. They do have a coelom as well, and they're also aquatic or terrestrial. All right. So when you look at from Annelida to Chordata, all of these phylum, they are aquatic or terrestrial. So it means that these can live on land or they can live in water. But as for us humans, we live on land, so we are terrestrial chordates. Okay. But other animals under Chordata, they actually are found inside the water. But us as humans, we are terrestrial. Right, so the phylum Chordata, it has got a segmented body as well. It's got a segmented body, but that is not usually visible from the diagram that we have. Now, the phylum Chordata, it is very important because it has got this structure that is known as a notochord. So basically, when you talk about a notochord, it is just an immature vertebral column. So basically you need to remember that us as humans, we do have a vertebral column, right? A vertebral column is just the backbone or the spinal cord. Yeah, the backbone or the spinal cord. So basically, when it is still a developing spinal cord, or when the bones are still weak, or when the spinal, when the spine bone is still weak, is known as a notochord. So all Chordata animals, they have got a notochord which later develops into a what? Into a vertebral column. Some of them, they do have a post-anal tail. Simply means that they've got a tail after the anus. Okay, let's just look at the shark, for example. So a shark is an example of a Chordata animal. Okay, it has got a mouth. This is the mouth. It has got an anus here. So this is the anus, right? And then it has got a tail after the anus. That's why we say that it's a post-anal tail. So the post-anal tail simply means that this is a what? This is a tail after, the anus, or this tail, it is found after the anus, because you can see that here the mouth is here, the anus is here, and then after the anus, that's where we find the tail. So they've got a post-anal tail. So this is a what? This is a shark, and it belongs to the same phylum as us humans because it's a Chordata, right? So the Chordata is also important for this reason. They can be ectothermic. They can also be endothermic. Remember, the ectothermic animals, those are cold-blooded animals. You've learned that in grade 10. Those are cold-blooded animals. They need to heat themselves by going to the sun. Those are ectothermic. Or they can be endothermic. Those are warm-blooded animals, such as us humans. We don't need to go to the sun to feel heat. Our bodies can produce heat. That's the difference between the two. So the Chordata can either be ectothermic or they can be endothermic. Because, for example, if you look at the sharks and the fish and sharks and all of those chordates, they are all cold-blooded. Alright, so it means that they are ectothermic. But when you look at us as humans, we also belong to the phylum Chordata, but we are warm-blooded. It means that we produce our own heat. So we are endothermic. Alright, so the Chordata can either be ectothermic or endothermic. And then the other thing about the chordates is that initially they develop these slits that are known as the pharyngeal gill slits. Pharyngeal gill slits. So how does a pharyngeal gill slit look like? This is how it looks like in a fish. So this is how it looks like. It is usually used for breathing inside water. So for those aquatic Chordata animals, they've got these pharyngeal gill slits. For fish, they are used to breathe in water. Basically, you know that a fish can breathe in water, right? Yes, because they've got this they've got these gills, these pharyngeal gill slits. So even the sharks have got a pharyngeal gill slit here. This is a pharyngeal gill slit here. These lines here, they represent a pharyngeal gill slit. So us as humans as well, even though it is not seen when we are still developing, or when our embryo is still developing, when we are still in our mother's womb. We also have these things, but later on they actually fade out when we become adults. So basically, the phylum Chordata, they've got these pharyngeal gill slits, but later on it happens within, they fade out for us as humans. But for fish and sharks and snakes and birds, okay, basically the shark and the fish, most especially these two, the ones that are found in the water, they do have their pharyngeal gill slits until adulthood. So thank you so much for watching this wonderful video, a wonderful premature cleanse. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends to also stay tuned.